Ever get that feeling like when you're sitting across from someone and the stakes are high? Maybe it's a client, a tough negotiation. Could even be your teenager trying to bend the rules on curfew.
Oh, tell me about it. Teenagers, right?
And you realize it's not just about the words themselves. It's a whole different game.
It is.
It's psychological, almost like a...
a dance.
Exactly, a strategic dance. And Mitch Jackson's book, Master the Art of Negotiation, is like our playbook for this deep dive. We're going deep on Chapter 3, Mastering the Mind Game.
I love that chapter.
So ready to master the psychology of, well, getting what we want.
Absolutely. Always ready for that. And, you know, what I love is how Jackson paints this picture of the negotiation room as a psychological ballet. It's such a vivid image.
Oh, I know. Right.
Every single move matters.
Everything's calculated.
Every pause, a raised eyebrow, it all carries so much weight.
It's true. It's like those silent standoffs in those old westerns, But instead of gunslingers, it's negotiators.
Yes. Armed with strategies and well-chosen words.
Instead of bullets. Exactly.
Loaded words. So how do we even begin to navigate this psychological ballet without stepping on each other's toes? Jackson talks about these cognitive biases that can really trick us up. Have you ever gotten, like, totally fleeced at a flea market?
Oh, absolutely.
Talked into buying something you probably shouldn't have?
More times than I care to admit.
Like, convinced it was a genuine antique when it was probably from, like, last year.
Yes. Oh, that's the classic example of anchoring bias right there.
There it is.
That vendor, they set the anchor with that ridiculously high price, and even though you bargained, you probably still paid way more than it was worth.
You're anchored to that first number.
Exactly. We fixate on it, even if it makes no sense.
It's like our brain betrays us.
It really is.
And it's not just about being aware of our own biases, right? It's about spotting them in other people.
100%. Imagine you're negotiating a salary for a new job. Whoever throws out the first number, even if it's a range,
sets the stage.
They set the stage. That's anchoring bias in action. Wow. Okay, so anchoring bias. What about confirmation bias? I feel like I'm guilty of this one.
Confirmation bias is a sneaky one.
Like, I once refused to believe my favorite band's concert was sold out because in my head, they just couldn't be that popular anymore.
Oh, no.
Turns out I was just looking at the wrong ticket sites.
That's a perfect example. Confirmation bias is all about seeking out information that backs up what we already believe, even if it's not the whole truth.
Even if it's delusional.
And in a negotiation.
Uh-oh.
It can make us totally blind to solutions, or concessions we should be making.
Okay, so we've got this pressure cooker environment, body language flying everywhere, and our own brains working against us. You'd think logic would be the way to go, right?
You would think.
But then Jackson throws in this curveball, emotional intelligence.
Because it's not just about being right, is it?
I mean, I like to think I'm right a lot.
Of course, of course. But it's about being in tune.
With the other person.
With yourself, with them, with the whole situation. Emotional intelligence, understanding those emotions, yours and theirs, that's like having a superpower in these situations.
So instead of trying to be like a robot,
right,
we need to be human, feeling humans.
We do. Embrace it.
It seems so counterintuitive, though.
I know.
But I'm intrigued. Jackson talks a lot about empathy, right?
He does, because it's crucial. Imagine truly stepping into their shoes, feeling what they're feeling, understanding their motivations. It doesn't mean you agree with them. It's about connecting on a human level. That's where real breakthroughs happen.
It's almost like, when you realize a friend's upset, and it's not because they're trying to be difficult, but because something deeper is going on.
It changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, see them differently.
Exactly. Empathy helps us see beyond the negotiation, beyond the table. And remember, there's a human there. That's how we start finding solutions that work for everyone, not just trying to win at all costs.
Which reminds me of another point Jackson really drives home. Fairness.
Oh, absolutely.
He even calls it the fairness heuristic.
And it's powerful stuff. It basically means people are more likely to say yes if a deal feels fair, even if it's not the absolute most they could get.
So it's like, we'd rather have a smaller slice of pie.
Right.
As long as everyone gets a slice.
Precisely. We're hardwired for fairness. It's in our DNA.
Yeah.
So in a negotiation, if you can make the other person feel like they're being treated fairly,
you're golden.
You're much more likely to get what you want.
Okay, give me an example. How does this fairness heuristic actually play out?
Sure. Let's say you're a freelance designer.
Right.
Negotiating a contract. You could focus on squeezing every last dollar out of the client.
Get that big rate.
Or you could frame it in terms of fairness. You highlight the value you bring, the time you invest, and make sure the client feels good about the deal too.
So everyone wins.
Everyone wins.
Okay, so we're not just talking about winning and losing. It's more nuanced than that.
Way more nuanced. And that brings us to another crucial part of this whole dance. Power.
Ooh, power. It's a loaded word.
It is. But Jackson reminds us it's not as simple as it seems.
Right, because we often think of power as being about hierarchy.
Like, I'm the boss, you're the employee kind of thing.
Exactly.
But power in negotiation, it's fluid. It can come from your expertise, the information you have, even your ability to connect with people.
So even if you're not the one in charge, you still have some leverage.
Exactly. Imagine you're a junior team member and you've got this killer idea. You might not have the CEO's title,
Right.
but you've got in-depth knowledge, you've done the research, and you're passionate. That's power.
That's using what you've got.
Exactly. And remember, power dynamics can shift. Being aware of those shifts, those subtle changes in the music of the conversation, that's key.
This is really making me see negotiation in a whole new light.
It's a dance,
A
remember?
dance, right. It's
Yeah.
like Jackson said, it's a whole symphony.
I love that analogy. He argues that all these things we've been talking about, the biases, the emotions, fairness, power, they all work together like instruments in an orchestra.
And when they're all working in harmony, right? Like you've got a conductor who knows how to bring it all together.
It's magical, isn't it?
That's when the real magic happens.
It's not about one person dominating. It's about understanding how it all fits together. The best negotiators, they can read the room, shift their approach. They orchestrate all these little psychological pieces to create something amazing.
You know, this whole conversation is making me rethink all those times I felt like I had to choose between being nice in a negotiation or being tough.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Like, which one is it going to be?
Yeah.
But it's not that black and white, is it?
It's not at all. It's about finding that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Being assertive, but also empathetic. Using logic, but not ignoring those gut feelings.
So we can be strategic without being, you know.
Heartless.
Exactly. Heartless robots.
We've got to hold on to that human element, knowing when to stand firm, when to concede, when to speak up, when to really listen. That's the art of it.
And the coolest part, this isn't just for like boardrooms and contracts,
Well,
right?
no, not at all. This is life stuff.
This is everyday life. Arguing with your landlord, getting a better deal on your cable.
Exactly. We're negotiating constantly, whether we realize it or not, even with our families, our friends, figuring out where to eat dinner, how to spend the weekend. These principles, they can help us navigate all that.
It's like Jackson snuck in a whole guide to better relationships disguised as a negotiation book, and we've just scratched the surface, really.
There's so much more to uncover. He's a brilliant teacher, that's for sure.
Well, we'll definitely link to Master the Art of Negotiation in the show notes for those who want to go deeper.
Definitely do that.
But before we wrap up, one last thought for everyone listening. We've talked about how these psychological strategies work in those big, formal negotiations. But what about the everyday stuff? How can knowing about, say, anchoring bias or the power of fairness, how can that help us deal with conflict at home, with our friends, even with our kids?
Oh, that's a great question.
It's something to think about as you go about your day. Maybe the real negotiation is happening all the time.
Now that is the mark of a true master. Finding those everyday opportunities to create win-win situations.
Well said. This has been a fascinating deep dive into the mind games, or maybe the mind dances of negotiation. Until next time, keep flexing those mental muscles, and remember, every interaction is a chance to fine-tune those skills.